What's Satan's favorite spice? Cinnamon. Cinnamon, you get it? Why was Satan a snake in the garden? Well, you see, a snake has no arms and no legs because Satan has been disarmed and defeated. All right, we had to have some fun today. If you got a Bible, you're going to want to open with me to Luke chapter 7. Luke 7. Normally, we stand right now for the reading of God's Word. I'm going to read the better part of about half this chapter today, so I'm not going to take time at the beginning, but I am going to do this. Y'all ready for this? We're going to jump in by asking a question. Have you ever prayed for something and then you didn't get the answer you wanted? Anybody in the room, you have prayed for something and did not get the answer you wanted? Raise them high. I want to see. Wow, look at this room. You're a bunch of spiritual losers. Welcome to the club because I had both arms up and both legs. All right? And anyway, years ago, we had an evangelist come to this church. And the evangelist comes in, you know how evangelists are. They come in, they got their, preaching, and the Lord said, It's like everything has another syllable to it. Anyway, this guy comes in, and of course he's going to pray for everybody because, we're Pentecostal. I believe all the gifts are available today. I believe that God still works miracles, right? I will talk about some of that, but I believe that. So we have this guy come in, and he's praying. Well, we had a guy in their church at that time that was legally blind. When I say legally blind, I don't mean just blind. I mean legally blind. I mean like could not see, couldn't read, couldn't do anything, all right? Are y'all following me? The evangelist walks up to him, prays for him, and gives him a word of prophecy. And the word of prophecy was, before this year is over, you will see again. Well, this guy's been blind since birth. And he says, before the year is over, you'll see again. Now, pardon me for being a skeptic, but I've been reading the Bible a day or two in my lifetime. Anybody else read the Bible? Did you ever see Jesus say, before the year is over, you'll see again? Normally when he did a miracle, how did it come out? Right then, right? So I took note of this, and I called the evangelist after he left town, and I heard the story, and I said, did you really say this? He said, yeah. I said, okay. Well, I'm putting a date on my calendar, bro. And we're going to have a call after the date on this calendar. We're going to do one of two things. We're either going to celebrate with a miracle, or you're going to come back and repent to this guy and apologize to him because you lied to him. One or the other. Is that wrong of me to hold somebody accountable like that? Oh, okay. All right. I'm just wondering. From the same. I believe in prophecy. I believe in all these things. But I also believe we should be responsible in what we do. Some of what we're talking about today, we're going to talk about faith. And what goes on in our culture is, and I grew up in this world, in this Pentecostal world where everything was a little crazy, and people thought faith was acting like an idiot and then expecting God to keep them from suffering the consequences of their idiot. All right. The evangelist did apologize, but the harm was done to a good man. And I was not happy. Anybody want to guess if that evangelist has ever been back to our church? No? We do have a bunch of kids running around this church because I had another evangelist one time. He's like, I just feel God wants me to pray for babies. If you want to get pregnant, come on down. And there was one couple in our church, they've been trying for quite some time to get pregnant, couldn't get pregnant anyway. And he prayed for them that day, and 9 months later, well, she's sitting up here on the front row. There was others. There were a bunch of them. We had a baby rush. So what I'm saying is you got both. Everybody say both. Okay, wow. In our readings, anybody been reading these Gospels and you're like, wow, Jesus does a lot of miracles? Anybody reading those and going like, wow, there's a lot of miracles here? Well, he regularly does stuff. He heals the lame, the blind, the deaf, the sick. But yet we've already We've already acknowledged that many of us in this room have prayed for miracles and nothing's happened. So that presents us with a problem. We had a girl in college. Her name was Heather, and she was a faithful, godly lady. As a matter of fact, she led our missions, what was called CMF, the Missions Fellowship. She was a missionary, just a great girl, but she had a shriveled hand. And the hand had been shriveled since birth, and it was a club hand or whatever she called it. I don't know. But one day we were having a conversation, me and her and my wife, and we were talking about how everybody at Bible college who all of a sudden thought they were the next big faith healer wanted to pray over her for her hand to be healed. And she said, I'm tired of being their guinea pig for faith. See, one of the things I think we need to pay attention to here is I am all for faith, but I'm not for faith if it puts somebody else down. And the problem I'm going to share with you today, and I made a lot of notes, and I threw those papers away. All right, these are my printed notes. I had another one. There were notes all over it. I threw it away this morning because I wanted to try to stay on target. Y'all ready? Here we go. There are 3 stories of faith in Luke chapter 7. The first one is the centurion. That was a man of great faith. So the first one was centurion, a man of great faith. What kind of faith did he have? Great faith. So what does great faith look like? Well, Luke chapter 7, verse 1. When Jesus had finished saying all this, in the hearing of the people, he entered Capernaum. There a centurion servant who his master valued highly was sick and about to die. So this was a slave. He owned a slave. He was sick and about to die. I don't have time to talk about that. I'll talk about slavery some other time. All right? But he valued him, and he was about to die. The centurion heard of Jesus and sent some elders of the Jews to him, asking him to come and heal his servant. And when they came to Jesus, they pleaded earnestly with him. Listen to what other people said about this guy. This man deserves to have you do this. This man what? He deserves to have you do this. Because he loves our nation and has built our synagogue. So this was a guy who put his money where his mouth is, right? He literally took his own money and did what? Built synagogue. Oh, by the way, we do have sermon notes on the app. If you want to go to the app, download the app, you can follow along and fill in these blanks and keep these notes because there's some good stuff in these notes today, all right? And he deserves to have you do this because he loves our nation, built our synagogue. So Jesus went with them. He was not far from the house when the centurion sent friends to say to him, Lord. So friends come from the centurion to say to Jesus, Lord, don't trouble yourself, for I do not deserve to have you come under my roof. I don't even deserve to have you come talk to me. Wow. That is why I did not consider myself worthy to come to you, but you just say the word. You say the word from there, and my servant will be healed over here. You say the word over there because I don't deserve you. I'm not that great of a guy. I know how sinful and lost and depraved I am. I don't even deserve to have you do anything for me. But you know what? Don't bug yourself, God. But if you just simply say, be healed, wherever you are, I know it's going to happen. All right, where are we at? And then he says this. This is the key to understanding this guy, and I'm going to say the key to understanding faith. He says, for I myself am a man with great authority. Did I read that right? I did not read it right, did I? He did not say, I myself am a man with great authority. What did he say? I am a man. The key to great faith is to know whose authority you are under. There are about 3 people that got that. The key to great faith is to know whose authority you are under. Are you under the authority of the devil? Are you under the authority of this culture and this world and the way they think? Are you under the authority of your own desires and wishes and wants? Most of us are, yes. You have not because you ask not, and when you do ask, you ask that you can get what you want and spend it on your pleasures. I'm quoting scripture. Are y'all following me? The problem is many of us are under our own authority, and we're wondering why God won't work in our lives, because the biggest barrier to having God work in your life is you. Come on. I told you I threw all my notes away, so I'm sorry. This is going to come out of my heart, but I got to talk to you about this stuff. Y'all ready for this? The world has been taught through Christianity for nearly 2,000 years until this century that the best thing you can do to follow Jesus is to kill your desires, to crucify your wants, your passions, your desires, and submit them to the authority of God. That's what the church has taught until about the last 50 years, where somehow we got the idea that it's all about us and not about Him. And the reason many of us don't experience God's power in our lives is if God were to give all of the things you're asking for, the only person that would be affected is you. Got to calm down here. I am a man under authority with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he does it. Why is he able to tell soldiers to go and they do it? Because he has authority? No, because he's under authority. If you want to have authority, you need to learn what your source of authority is and submit to it. I'm just going to go protest in the street because I don't like what everybody's telling me to do. Well, I mean, there's a time for protest if you're doing it with the right authority. If you got the wrong authority, all you're going to do is just get cold. That's not a judgment on anybody. That's simply saying we live in a culture right now that your opinion is elevated above truth. And I'm telling you that God will not bless you if your opinion leads the way. He's got to humble you because, all right. That's why what is our confession as Christians? Jesus is Lord. I am under authority, and because I'm under authority, I have soldiers under my authority, and I tell this one, go, and he goes, and that one, come, and he comes, and I say to my servant, do this, and he doesn't. When Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him, and turning the crowd following him, he said, I tell you, I have not found such great authority. No, he said, I haven't found such great faith even in Israel. Then the men who had been sent returned to the house and found the servant well, because Jesus did what was asked. He spoke the word from a distance, and the guy was well. And what I would say to all those who prayed for Heather, my friend Heather with a shriveled hand, if you got that much faith, you don't have to walk up to her and anoint her with oil and pray over her. You know what? You have just as much power from a distance if you're speaking under the authority of Jesus Christ. So centurion's faith is marked by two key boundaries. All right, so if you want great faith, there's two things you need to learn to understand. The first one is humility. He recognized that he didn't deserve anything from Jesus. He didn't deserve anything from Jesus, but Jesus did it because he loved him. Humility is realizing that you and I, if we got what we deserved, I'm always telling people, at the grocery or go to get my pop, and they say, how you doing today? I'm saying, better than I deserve. What does that mean? Well, if I got what I deserved, I would be one of those burnt French fries in the pit of hell. Like the burnt French fry at McDonald's that's been left in the cooker for 2 days. You know what I'm talking about? I'd be like that black, gross, little disgusting, shriveled up in the bottom of hell if I got what I deserved, because I know what I deserve. But I haven't got what I deserve. My humility when I approach God is, God, I'm not telling you what to do because I understand every blessing I receive from you is a gift and a grace from you. All right? Second of all, he understands authority. Second boundary is authority. He recognized the authority of Jesus. He recognized the authority of Jesus over sickness, over disease, over every part of this universe, over Satan, over the universe, over light, over dark. Jesus' authority is unquestioned. And even the disciples, when they were on the waves, and Jesus said to the wind and the waves, "Quiet, be still." They said, "Who is this?" Even all of creation obeys him, because Jesus is the ultimate authority. And if there's anything I would talk to you about faith about, it would be, hey, listen, quit. All right. There's a brand of faith in our culture that is not about faith in God, but about faith in our faith. And I grew up in this world. The pastor I grew up with, every book in his shelf was Kenneth Hagin. And I was discipled early on by a guy named Kenneth Copeland. And if you don't know Copenhagen, you're pretty blessed if you don't know them. They're weird. They may have started preaching the gospel, but they got off into weird stuff. And what happened is this. All right, so this teaching is the hyper faith teaching. It's the teaching that sort of rules our world right now. Anybody ever heard anybody say, "I just declare"? Anybody ever heard that? "I just speak." Anybody? "I just speak this," or "I speak that." Anybody heard those words? All right, that is rooted in heresy. It may not be heresy the way you pray it, but the rootings of that kind of language is rooted in heresy. Because here's where it comes back to. Kenneth Hagin knew a little Greek. I got a joke, so I'll skip it. All right. Greek, the New Testament was originally written in Greek. And he knew a little Greek, but he knew just enough Greek to be bad. People come to me and they want to talk to me about Greek and what the Greek says. And listen, I just want to say to me, to you, most of what we want to find in the Greek, when we really learn more about Greek, it's like speaking Spanish twice and thinking you know Spanish. Every Sunday I can, Danny DeJesus goes back here in the back hallway and prays over me in the language of heaven because he speaks Spanish fluently. And he starts praying in Spanish, and man, it is a great time. I love it when he prays for me in Spanish, but I don't know what he's saying. Well, this guy, he's like that. He knew a little bit of Greek. And I'm going to put up the verse. The verse is Mark 11:22, and it's "have faith in God" is how it's translated in our version. But in the Greek, we were supposed to have the Greek up there, but in the Greek it says, "Ekete pistin theou," have faith of God. Now, what Kenneth Hagin said, and I wish I had time to break all this down. I had all in my notes, and I took it all out because of time. But faith of God, he said, hey, we don't just have faith in God. We can literally have the God kind of faith, so we can declare, and God has to do it. Anybody ever heard that kind of stuff? That is the stuff that's flowing around now. So I am not recommending this book by any stretch of the imagination, but I want to tell you where it came from, okay? This is an ideology that grew up out of the 1900s where people thought humans are going to get better and better and better and better, and we're going to take over the world because we're going to get better and we're going to get smarter and we're going to take over the world. Does anybody remember that kind of ideology? All right. This is that ideology. It says, I believe that the mind of man contains the greatest of all forces. Anybody ever heard speaking to the universe? Anybody, those of you that are normal? Yeah, like my thought waves and my voice echoes and it stays in the universe forever, so the universe has to obey it. Anybody ever hear this stuff? This stuff is out there. And it says, that thought is one of the greatest manifestations of energy, that not only in one's body subject to the control of the mind, but also one may change their environment, their luck, their circumstances by positive thought taking the place of negative. I believe that man is rapidly growing to a new plane of consciousness in which he will himself know himself as he is and recognize the I am is something within. And the reason I read that quote is I want you to know where all of this goes, because I'm going to put a verse up on the screen. Where all of this hyper-faith stuff goes is it winds up Romans 4:17. I don't have time to go back and read the context of this. The context of this is really great. But this speaking things into existence or speaking things into the universe and all this kind of stuff, what it does is it says that you have the power to speak and that everything changes because your power of speech. Are y'all following me? And that means that you are creator, because I've heard this verse taken out of context so many times. I want to put it back in the right context for you. You ready? The God, who are we talking about here? God. We're talking about the one and only God who gives life to the dead and calls things that are not as though they were. Who's the only one that's able to speak and something happens? You talk all you want to, but unless you're talking in alignment with God's will, nothing's going to happen. Except you're going to run out of breath. Now, I'm all for confession when it's in confession and alignment with God, because homologos, confession means homo, same, logos, word, the same word. So when you do confess something, you actually literally confess the same things God is already saying. You have no power in your words. Your power is in agreeing with his word. And what I like about this, I'm sorry, I'm being sarcastic there. I will not be sarcastic. What bugs me about this confession movement is everybody confesses all the positive scriptures that give them health, wealth, blessing, all that kind of stuff. I've never heard anybody confess persecution, trouble, hardship. Are y'all following me? But yet God sometimes wills that people go through persecution, hardship, and tribals, right? All right. So I guess what I'm saying is this. I'm all for having faith, but let's have faith of God. Of God means, the faith of God means that God is the source and he is the faith, and we just tap into him rather than us having his faith and using it for ourselves. All right. I'm geeking out on you guys. I'm sorry. But you have to understand, I get really, really concerned. I get really, really concerned because here's the deal. I want you to have faith. I want you to pray, and I want you to hope, and I want you to believe in God. I want you to pray like you mean it. I want, like Abraham, come on. I told you the context was really good. I got to read it. I'm sorry. Against all hope, Abraham in hope still believed, and so became the father of many nations. Just as has been said to him, so shall your offspring be. Listen to this. Without weakening in his faith, he faced the fact that his body was as good as dead. So there was no oblivion to reality. He recognized the truth, but still had faith in God. All right, so why does this matter? My wife went on a missions trip. Years ago, she was sick. She got sick. She got so sick, she had to come home from the missions trip. She's laying in the hospital, literally about to die. If she hadn't come home that week, she would have been dead. She came home in a narrow window. They were able to save her life. And she's laying in the hospital. Remember, she went there by faith, believing God had healed her. She went there by faith, believing that God wanted her to reach the nations. Everything she's doing is by faith. And then she comes home, and some yahoo comes into her hospital room and says, what sin is in your life that God did this to you? And brother, if I had been there, there'd been some sin in my life because I'd beat the holy crap out of him. I'm sorry. That last part is my sinful nature. I tell you, I deserve to be a French fry in the pit of hell. Now, why am I telling you that story? Because this hyper faith then makes it all about you doing things rather than you hiding in God and letting him do things. Because remember, the great faith this man had was that he was humble enough to know that he couldn't do anything, and he understood the authority of God to speak, and no matter what. Now, I'm going to tell you something. That woman's one of the greatest women of God I know. And this teaching of this hyper faith stuff, it is a bondage from Satan. This teaching is a bondage from Satan. I'm going to say it again because I thought this was supposed to be on the screen. This teaching of hyper faith garbage is a bondage from Satan. All right. How do you have great faith? You trust in God. You believe in Him. All right, I got 5 minutes to do the rest of this. Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Fast. The widow of Nain is an example of no faith. You had a great faith. The very next story is about faith, but it's a widow of Nain, no faith. Now, the widow only had one son, and he died. So what that means, I'm going to set this story up for you. A woman that has no husband and has no son has no source of income. She will now be destitute for life. And let's read this story. 7:11, Luke 7:11. Soon afterward, Jesus went to a town called Nain, and his disciples and a large crowd went along with him. As he approached the town gate, I was thinking about this morning. What would be the equivalent of this? Let's just say there's a hearse driving down the road with a bunch of cars following it. And we're like standing out at the corner of 83 and Center Ridge Road. And about 50 of us going to walk across the road, and we see the hearse coming down the road. All right? As he approached the town gate, a dead person was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. A large crowd from the town was with her. When the Lord saw her, his heart went out to her. And he said, "Don't cry." So he stopped the hearse. He said to the widow, "Hey, don't cry." And then he went up to the coffin. He opened up the hearse, pulled out the casket, opened up the lid, reached down, touched the guy, and he said, "Young man, get up." And the dead man sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. And they were all filled with awe, and they praised God. And this is what they said. Notice this. A great prophet has appeared among us, and God, here's the key line, God has come to help his people. The takeaway was that God had invaded their space, that he'd showed up to help. Now listen, I want to ask you, how much faith did this widow of Nain have? Is there any mention anywhere in the story that she even asked Jesus to do anything? There's nothing. All we have here is the compassion of our God being poured out on somebody who needs it. Come on, there's some of you need to sigh right now. You need to let go of that tension because you've been thinking it's all about you. It's not about you. God has compassion on you. The conclusion of this miracle is not predicated on her faith. It is not predicated on faith. The conclusion of the people is God came to us to help us. You know, Jesus often did miracles out of his compassion. Matthew chapter 9:35, Jesus went throughout all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he splunkna. His belly literally got into knots. His stomach, he felt in his stomach a desire to do something for them. That's compassion. His stomach was torn up over them. He had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, sheep without shepherd. So I just want to say this to you. You all ready? Jesus cares about the things you care about. Jesus cares about the things you care about. If it's big enough to worry or complain about, it's big enough to pray about. I'm going to say that again. If it's big enough to worry or complain about, it's big enough to pray about. It's big enough to talk to God because he cares about what you care about. And I believe when you pray, you should believe that Jesus wants to intervene and you should trust him. So real quick, there was a lady years ago, you've heard this story, you'll hear it again. It was one of the most miraculous healings I've ever seen in my life. She's laying in bed, they're going to cut her leg off, I believe, the very next day. She had staph infection, her bones were shattered, she was unable to walk. They were going to literally saw off her legs the next day. I go into the hospital, Oberlin Hospital. I talk to her. As I'm talking to her, we talk for like an hour about faith and stuff, and we get to know each other. And as I'm walking out, I'm like, oh, I forgot to pray for you. So I reach down and I touch the tip of her toe, and I I said, Jesus, heal these legs. Amen. And I walked out. And the very next day, they went to look for staph infection that was going to cause her to lose her legs. And there was no staph infection in her legs. I know that happened because she still walks around on those legs to this very day. That's important to me because I serve a God that cares enough that when we don't have the faith to manufacture a miracle, he still cares enough to do the miracle that needs to be done. All right, and then last of all, and I got to cover this one because this one's rough. Y'all ready? John the Baptist had doubting faith. These three stories are in a row. They're intentional. They're placed this way intentional. Luke does this a lot. Luke chapter 15, 3 stories in a row, they're intentional. Here it's intentional as well. I don't have time to get into it, but all the way at the end of the chapter, we're going to get to a closing statement that says, according to your faith, be it to you. Because he's talking about faith this entire chapter. But I have to include this story. The first one was a guy that had great faith. The second one was a woman that things were done with no faith. The third one, though, is about a doubting faith. And this is John the Baptist. To understand the story, though, you have to understand where John the Baptist is. Luke 3:20, Herod added this to them all. He locked John up in prison. So where is John? He's in prison. He is literally about to die. Soon he will be beheaded and die. So John is in prison, and Jesus is running around the countryside doing miracles, but has done nothing to rescue him. I don't think you got that. Can you put that one up on the screen? John is in prison, and Jesus has done nothing to rescue him. Nothing to rescue him. So, that is the context of this passage. Luke chapter 7, verse 17. This news about Jesus spread throughout Judea and the surrounding country. John's disciples told him about all these things. Calling 2 of them, he sent them to the Lord to ask, hey, are you the one who was to come, or should we expect somebody else? Remember John the Baptist baptizing? He sees Jesus and dove falls down from heaven. The voice from heaven speaks. John the Baptist knows who Jesus is, but he's in pain. He's suffering. He is isolated. He's alone. He's hurting. It is a moment of doubt. And he says, hey, are you really the one? Because you're out there doing great stuff out there. And here I am. I'm your man. I'm your man. I'm loyal to you, Jesus. Where am I? Prison, about to die. When the men came to Jesus, they said, John the Baptist sent us to you to ask, are you the one who's come, or should we expect someone else? And at that time, Jesus cured. At that time. Notice this. I want you to notice this. While John is suffering, what is Jesus doing? He's curing many who had diseases, sickness, evil spirits, and gave back sight to many who were blind. Does Jesus have the power to get even John out of prison? Absolutely. He's got the power to do it. He's doing it for everybody else. What's he doing for John? Nothing, honey. So he replied to the messengers, go back. Oh, by the way, the nuttin' honey is an old joke off of a commercial from when some of you were not yet born. I'm sorry about that. So he replied to the messengers, go back and report to John what you've seen and heard. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cured, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, the good news is preached to the poor. Hey, I'm doing all the things that Messiah's doing. And you know what I'm doing for you? Nothing. And then you know what he said? Blessed is the man who isn't scandalized because of me. Scandalize, it's a Greek word. It just means to be scandalized. Blessed is the man who doesn't lose his faith, who doesn't fall away on account of me. Jesus continues to do miracles for everyone else. He leaves John in prison. And Jesus makes a statement to John. Don't lose your faith just because you suffer. My dad got to the end of my dad's life. And the band's going to come out now. Got to the end of my dad's life. My dad was a great man of God. He lived for God his entire life. He raised us boys in church. He followed Jesus. I saw him pray. He led dozens and dozens and dozens of boys to Christ. He was a great man. Lived the life, walked it, talked it, acted it, at home. I fell asleep many nights listening to him pray over me, my brother. And I had this experience with this great man of God, but my dad had been sick for about a year, and he was very sick. By the time it was the disease that would take his life. And I was home one day, and I was talking to him, and he said, Kevin, how do I know this is all true? How do I know Jesus is real? How do I even know that I'm saved? How do I know there's a life after death? How do I know these things? My dad, great man of faith, because of his pain, struggled with doubt. Hey, guess what? If you go through down times, you're going to struggle. And I just want to say to you two things. Number one, it's okay. But number two, that verse is this. Luke 7:23, blessed is the man who doesn't fall away on account of me. You know Jesus has done miracles. You've seen it. Let's not forget what he's done in the moment when he doesn't. Let's remember that he's still God. Even if we have to go through a hard time, because here's the deal. The Bible teaches clearly, confess this one, all right? All you positive confessions, confess this one. That we are purified by our persecutions. That we are made strong by our struggles. And we're all going to check out of here one day or not. Everybody's going out. Nobody gets out of this world alive. We're all going to die. Right? We're all going to die. Have faith until the end. I'm going to tell you one more story and then we'll be done. I got to ask a question, all right? One more story. I don't know if you know this or not, but my dad had 5 bypass surgery. My brother had 4 bypass surgery. My mother had a heart attack. They had to literally roto-rooter her heart open. My grandma died of a heart attack at 63. My other grandpa had 4 heart attacks. Guess what, everybody? Heart condition runs in my family. Did y'all know that? Yeah? So I had about 8 years ago, I guess it was, I had a heart cath done, and they told me I was 50 and 60% blocked in 3 of my arteries. All right? So a couple years ago, about 2 years ago, I had walked up the stairs and I couldn't breathe when I got to the top of the stairs. I was like, everything I did, it was showing all the signs of blockage. I was having tightness in my chest the whole bit, right? So I go to the doctor and they do that MRI test. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Where they lay you down, they put fluid throughout you, and they MRI the blood flow in your body. And they came back with there were multiple significant blockages, over 80%, probably in the 90% category in my body. That was July. I'm scheduled for a heart cath in September. But my mom has her heart attack. My brother has his heart attack the same 2 days apart. So I have to go home to take care of them. I go home to take care of them. Well, apparently there were some people in this church that found out that, heart condition runs in my family, and they don't want me to die young. I don't know why, but hey. So anyway, what they did was they started praying for me, and I came back and got my heart cath in October, early October, and my wife is in the waiting room. It was about 10 minutes after they took me back, the doctor comes out. And she said, what happened? He said, there's no problem. He doesn't have any blockages over 30%. Now, why do I tell you that? All right, let me tell you the rest of the story. I waited to tell anybody the story until I went back to the heart doctor. I went back to my heart doctor, and they took my blood test, and my cholesterol had always been 210 to 220. They took my cholesterol after that happened, and guess what my cholesterol was? 146. Now, I asked my doctor, who's not a believer, I said, how did that happen? He said, I don't know. I was like, well, I know. Let me tell you about my Jesus. Come on, let me tell you that Jesus is able to do what you can't do. He spoke the word from heaven, and my arteries obeyed. And I know that God is not a respecter of person. So I want to say to you today, we're going to do an altar call of faith. Y'all ready for this? I got 3 questions for you. And right now, our prayer team's going to come up here. Come on, prayer team, right now. Let's go. Which story did you identify with? The man with great faith that God would answer his prayer? Are you so in pain that you're like the widow of Nain? You don't even have faith. You just need God's compassion. Or did you identify with John the Baptist, wondering where God is? No matter which place you're at, here's what we're going to do today. We're going to pray for God to come near you in this moment and to bring comfort, to bring healing, to bring restoration, to bring miracles to your finances and your family. We're going to believe that God's going to do the supernatural right now in this place. So for the next 5 minutes, we're just going to take time and we're going to pray. So would you stand with me? And if you want somebody to pray with you this morning for a miracle, come up. We've all got oil. We're going to pray for you and believe for God to do a miracle right now.